Thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for your support. Space is, as you know, been working very hard to get these events together, and it's great to see that your faces are here to support us through Black History Month. And today we have a wonderful guest. And just to expose one of our colleagues here, this gentleman here is the brother of Molara, who works within Transport for London. So you've seen all the information that I've sent around about Daniel. And Daniel is a BAFTA award-winning scriptwriter. He's done a very popular show called Save Me and Run. And he works alongside a friend, I believe you grew up together, Marlon Smith. And they've done a huge amount of work together and had dreams from when they were children, etc., to do what they are doing today. So he's come to talk to us about his journey, very interesting journey. And we're just going to have a conversation and we'll talk for a while, and then we'll let yourselves just interject with any questions if you're inspired to ask anything. So please ask questions, don't be shy. And so we'll start. So Daniel, thank you very much for coming today.
Thanks for having me. And I just want to say, sorry Marlon couldn't make it as well. We've got like a really hard deadline, so he's working now while I'm here. And then afterwards I'm going to join him and join up and finish with him.
We appreciate that. And
no, it's all right.
You've taken that time out to come and talk to us today.
I'm glad to.
Busy schedule. So as I mentioned at the top of the intro, you've worked on Save Me and Run. Could you tell us a little bit about that plot?
Run, which was an original idea by Marlon and then another friend of ours called Jonathan Pearson. So that idea is about, it's like an event that happens in which a man dies due to like a kind of random fight, and then you see how that death ripples out and affects like 3 other people that he doesn't even know. And the idea was kind of based on the idea of the butterfly effect. So one thing happens with someone who's a stranger to you, but over time their ripple effect will affect your life in some way. And so it's about how this death affects these strangers, and in a way kind of like joins them together, and then by the end the story kind of comes full circle, and we kind of find out why the guy died and kind of what happened next. I don't want to give too much away just in case you go out and so 4OD or whatever all 4 I think it's called now.
Yeah, at least you're not like my grandmother would say, oh, put the film on where the man dies.
Like in this one, he dies in the beginning. It's about what happens afterwards, so I'm not spoiling anything.
And Run.
Save Me. That was the actor Lenny James, who came to me and Marlon and said, I've got this idea, and it's about, he plays this kind of good-for-nothing ladies' man who's got a kid that he never sees and hasn't seen since she was a baby, and then she goes missing. Like the mum, comes out of the from his past to say, look, the daughter that you never looked after has gone missing, and that kind of invigorates him, out of guilt, obviously, of never being around, to go look for his daughter. And in doing that, he starts to obviously realise what he missed, but get to know his daughter more, but then also get sucked into this kind of underworld of sex trafficking, unfortunately, which is quite dark. But the character that he plays is he's kind of like a lovable rogue, trying to make up for like 13 years of being a good-for-nothing dad, really. And so it's kind of like a drama thriller. And we did 2 seasons of that. Save Me, and then Save Me 2 as in like TOO. So everyone thought that was really smart. And there's going to be a 3rd one, but I'm not sure when, because Lenny's very, very busy with Walking Dead and various other kind of American stuff. And I think maybe he said he wants to do like just 3 kind of 90-minute episodes. He might just do on his own, maybe. Okay. But maybe we might get a call, who knows. But
brilliant. And why those stories?
So with Run, we were basing those on a lot of, I guess, people we knew, grew up with, and stories we'd heard in the area where we were kids, and also were heavily influenced by a film called Amores Perros, which is like a Mexican movie that has a kind of similar thing where it's like four strangers are connected by a kind of random event. And we felt that we could kind of tell something authentic, but at the same time entertaining, and kind of put, you know, ourselves into it, but not make it biographical, because it wasn't necessarily what was happening in our lives, just more like what we'd kind of seen and heard around us. And then Save Me kind of had like an air of that. When Lenny came to us, he had seen Run. And he was like, I really like it, and I want to kind of do have that flavour in this, because in Run it's and in Save Me it's set in a working class community with people of all different shapes, sizes, and colours and creeds, and it feels real. And he wanted to have that same kind of backdrop. And when he told us the story, we really liked, because I think if you see Save Me and the guy Nelly, who he plays, the lead character, I think everyone who comes from a working class community would know someone like that. Right? Maybe they're even in their family. Maybe it's even them. So immediately it was like, okay, yeah, we kind of feel familiar with this, and we feel like we can add something to it.
Sure. That sounds like you are just picking from stuff that you actually feel and experience, because you can speak to it.
Yeah.
Because what I found interesting with that, it's not what most people would typify as a black series, or it was just about life. It was just people.
Yeah, it was, I mean, that was a big thing for us as well. I think we definitely enjoy shows like Top Boy, for example, because I think that's a kind of good example of, I think, what's expected of us. But I think we wanted to do something that did involve like black characters, but wasn't necessarily, you know,
because they're black.
Because they're black, and also, you know, being gangsters and stuff like that. Again, like I enjoy those stories. I think they have a place, but I don't think they should be the entirety of.
It's not
what
the total sum.
It's not the total sum.
Because that's why I appreciated that, and because I do, like yourself, enjoy those sort of movies, because it is reality. It does happen, but it's it just feeds to the stereotype that that's the total sum.
I think we're a bit more diversified than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Run was in 2013. What would you say has changed for an aspiring writer today?
A lot. I would say mainly in a positive way, because when we started out, there wasn't many black writers or black stories being told, and I think what's happened over time is a lot of people in the industry have realised that they're kind of missing out from a commercial point of view. I think there is obviously an aspect of it that is political as well, and maybe moral in some people's opinions, but I think it's largely that there's just from a business point of view, it's an untapped audience that they can make money from effectively. And so what that has meant is there's a lot more opportunities. And on top of that, a lot of both literary agents and producers are actively going out there and looking for writers who I guess don't, they're not just white, I guess, like non-white writers, and that goes like across, obviously they're looking for black writers as well, but they also just want to look for stories that involve different types of people from different classes as well, and I think that's increased rapidly, or radically rather, which is great. And so, for example, when Marla and I started out, we had Run, and we had done that, and we were developing other projects, and I think back then you had to mainly kind of have a slate that would appeal to, I guess, like a more white audience. But I think now people are like, no, like you can make it for everyone. We kind of consider a mainstream audience to be a mix of people, which it always has been.
Yeah.
And I think it's just waking up to that. So it's positive.
I find that interesting that you say that, because we was having discussions earlier, and although I do see that there has been some improvement in that in terms of more diversity, there is still this story being told that it's more marketable if the audience aren't black. It's more marketable if the audience is more reflective of society, because there's a larger number of white people. But then you look at statistics of like Black Panther and the numbers that brings in, and Get Out, the huge amount of them. It was the highest grossing horror movie in history at one point. And to me, that sounds like the industry are telling us a story that isn't true.
Yes, yeah, and I think so. I guess I'm looking at it from a perspective of like development. So like there are a lot of people who will pay for scripts. Them getting made is like a whole separate journey. Like things actually getting onto a screen, be it TV or the cinema, still do face like an uphill struggle in terms of like, okay, I guess not to get too like inside baseball, but when it comes to the film and TV industry, a lot of money is spent both on development and production. But it's a kind of like, it's a case of where a lot of people work on like ratios. So for every 50 projects that come in, you're only going to make maybe 10. But you need to have that churn of like projects coming in, you developing them, and then ultimately saying no in order to kind of keep your budget going, stuff like that. So that's good in a sense, like for someone like myself who's a writer who lives largely in development, because you can earn like a wage or a salary. But if you're say like a director who who makes money when things are made, like on set, the opportunities are a lot less. So it's they do pay more for different types of stories, but they're still not necessarily making as many as they could. But again, I think it's pointed in the right direction in that there is an increasing number now of, like we were saying earlier, like successful Black British actors who've gone abroad, and some are coming back, and I think that is helping to get a lot of these things that are in development looked at, like maybe would have just stayed in development, perhaps not going into production.
So do you think that like the John Biegos and Daniel Kaluuya and Idris, when they go to America, they shine more, and then they're more attracted to the British industry after that point? Do you think that's a necessary move to see?
Yeah, I think they're definitely noticed all over again, and when they come back, they kind of have different, like people want to invest in them a lot more. And I think a lot of them are coming back to make stuff. Like everyone you mentioned has a production company, and so they're getting in on the ground level as well, which again means it's pointed in the right direction, because like I was saying before, like production is the last hurdle and the hardest hurdle. But I think if you want to get more, Black stories out there, or anyone from an ethnic minority wants to get their story out there, you kind of need to be in that section as well, because that's where a lot of the, whoever makes the decisions to finance and greenlight projects need to be reflective of, I guess, whatever community wants to get their story out there. And so it's good that they're coming back here to try and make stuff.
So you talk about the green light on some of these projects. I'm finding that within the art industry, whether it be music, visual art, social media is helping people be more independent and pushing their work out there, and perhaps weakening the strength of those gatekeepers. Would you say that is having some influence of them?
I would say it's more fragmented. So maybe it has weakened it, but only in the sense that a gatekeeper or I guess people who are in charge of greenlighting things, their audiences have shrunk. Like, back in the day, something like EastEnders would have got 14 million people watching, but now that's drastically reduced. But the BBC and EastEnders is still a popular show and still influential to a degree. It's just like there are other things. It's like our attention span basically has so many. There's so many people who want it, and we've got so many choices as to where to put it. So I think in that respect, their market share has been eaten away, but I still think the power's still there, but just in a smaller kind of sandpit.
Right. Okay. Maybe would you say it's those larger industries, the bigger names they still have the gatekeepers, and the widening of that market are the more artisan sort of. Yeah,
or more like so if they would have had the lion's share of everyone's attention, and that's maybe reduced to maybe 40% if you like, and then that other 40% are getting their entertainment from people who can just pick up a phone and film things and become celebrities in their own right. But then you do see a lot of them migrate back to mainstream media as well, because mainstream media still is a massive part. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's kind of like I guess it will always have a place in our lives. It will just change over time, but we, there's a reason. Obviously, some people, especially YouTube celebs, that can make millions and stay there. But then there are some comedians like Mo Gilligan being an example, who is very popular still on social media, but kind of made his bones doing that and doing live shows, and now has got TV shows as well. It kind of and maybe he could have stayed out just doing social media, but I think if you want to, I think in a way mainstream media legitimizes you in a certain way, kind of means that you're kind of bona fide. You're not in a niche category.
So there's some street cred to the artisan, but for the industry that makes you a bit more refined and. Yeah,
I think it kind of. I still think it's got that credibility of you're a true performer now, a true artist or a true filmmaker if you're on TV or in the cinema. It kind of a lot still hangs on that.
So we spoke earlier about why the stories for Run and for Save Me. And your love for Spike Lee, because I know you mentioned that before, which are very, very different kind of.
Yeah.
So what was it about Spike Lee that attracted you yourselves? What influenced you?
Yeah, well, I think it's not like we do stuff like him, but I think growing up in the 90s, that was the only kind of person that was doing it on a wide enough platform for us to notice over here in the UK. So, and it was very provocative, even today when you think about it, and made you think and was funny. And so, it was a major influence in so much as we would look and be like, okay, we want to do something like this. Or at least not that particular story, but we want to be like someone like that. I think that's what it
I relate to that, because most of our shows, if we actually saw anyone that looked like us, it was from America. Like The Cosby Show or Different World, and you wanted to be just like those individuals because it was someone. So for anyone who's not from a black family, when we saw a black person on the TV, a big black person on telly, and you would scream that around the house, everyone run down the stairs and just sit around the telly and watch it. These days we're quite spoiled and we see quite a lot of black faces on TV, but it was a novelty. You can say that to any black person, they will relate to it.
Especially if they turned up in a show where they would be the token black character. They've done it, they've got one now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that's grown over time.
Yeah, that's right.
Friends did it.
That's right. And then it drew that audience, isn't it? So when Friends brought in a black character, then other black people would watch it. Although most black people would secretly watch it anyway, we just didn't say it out loud.
It's all right now, you can all come out of the closet. It's all good.
Right, absolutely. So what kind of stories are important for you to share and tell?
I think ones that anyone can relate to, even because I kind of, and Marlon shares the same feeling as well, is that sometimes the more specific you can get about a character or a world in which a story is set, even if you're like, I have no kind of like connection to this and I'm not from this, but in a weird way, the more specific you can get and the more you feel for that person, the more you start to see yourself in that person. Like you can relate and be like, okay, yeah, even with like foreign language stuff as well, I may not even understand his culture, but I understand that human emotion.
Yeah.
And I understand, things like, family or friends or these kind of universal themes that no matter where you're from, you can immediately kind of get behind. And I think we're always trying to get in touch with that. What's the thing that unites us all? Because that's really what keeps people, coming back episode after episode, or want to rewatch a film, or even when you're trying to get something made, someone who's going to greenlight is going to be able to see that, okay, this is going to really touch everyone, in some form, shape or form.
So when you write, do you find that there's some input in terms of what the people who greenlight have to say about your characters? Do they try and typify them perhaps because they don't believe they're real? Because I know there was that issue within Hollywood. There was even a movie made about it, about how they tried to typify certain characters. It was even in the 70s. I don't know, someone might know about Miney Language or what was the other one, Little Britain. So they would make jokes about how it would typically be if he was Asian or black, etc. Because that's how they wanted to feed into those stereotypes. Is it the same now?
I guess that would happen in an unconscious way. I don't think they would like consciously, but there is a kind of like, they can be, should I say, an unconscious kind of push for it to feel like something that, like for example, I think when we were developing Run, I think there was a kind of like suggestions to have, like black drug dealers in there, and we were like, we don't necessarily we don't need that, but we understand why you would want that, because it is real and we're trying to tell like a real story set in South London, but there are other aspects to look at, and in a way by not we did have like someone who was an addict in there, and like you see a lot of stories about someone who'd be selling to that addict and all the kind of shenanigans that goes on with rival crews and all that, but we were interested in like, well, what about this guy who's buying from he has a life, and that for us was a bit more interesting, and we felt could be a bit more universal than maybe the guy who's like selling to him, because we've seen a version of that, but not necessarily the other way around, and so I think there can be mainly because people feel like that's what an audience wants to see, because I think when you're in TV and film, there's this weird, you have to live like in this kind of in between where you have to kind of second guess what people want to watch. That's kind of needed, but at the same time you have to do what you think is best, and if you're lucky they meet in the middle.
So I think we mentioned as well when we had a chat that when you try to stick to or try to envision what people want, it's kind of it kills your creativity.
It can a bit, or you could get it completely wrong. There's some things that people have done thinking that it's going to be a hit, and it hasn't. Because they suspected people would be into it, but they're not. And then things that people didn't believe in that struck, and then was like, I had no idea people would be into something like this. So I think it's. But you need both. That tension between the two, I think, is at the heart of almost any creative endeavor that is for an audience.
Yeah, I think it's important to have those fails as well. It's not just about the successes, because you can learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people get a hard time or really, punish themselves and their thoughts how they failed on something. But there is a lot of value in that when you're a creative. the house. Also, otherwise, if you're so afraid of failing, that again, it kills your creativity. You just have to try.
Just have to.
Yeah.
I think the more kind of fearless you are, the better it is, regardless of the result.
Yeah.
Because people can see it.
And in your journey, what would you say you would do differently now that could have made your journey perhaps easier, a shorter route, or?
It's a tough one. Maybe because how we got run noticed was that we, and this this is going back a bit. So I guess around 2010. So we shot some of what we had written. Like, we went and filmed it, and that's definitely like it's the norm now. Like as we were saying before, like you can just kind of go off and shoot anything now and put it up online, and it can hit. But I think back then it was still a rarity to do something like that. So that was our aim, was to we're going to shoot something and then put it out there, and then that will get some attention. I mean, we didn't end up putting it online because luckily Channel 4 got to see it, and they were like, actually back then they were like, no one watches anything online.
Yeah.
Back then they were like, it's just cat videos on YouTube. Yeah. How things have changed, right? Yeah. Like it's so funny that it's gone the complete opposite way. But back then they were like, no one's going to watch it. Let's make it for TV, and which was the right decision then. So I guess looking back, I would want to do more of that.
Right.
And be in the practice of that, because I kind of feel like if we were maybe more like getting more into directing our own stuff, we wouldn't have to live in development for as much. We could kind of be like, all right, we're just gonna do this on a shoestring budget and shoot it ourselves, because it's just so easy to do now. But because we're not necessarily in the practice of it, so that I'll probably shoot more stuff.
So is that segues into my other question as to what you'll do in the future? Is that something that we're going to be seeing from yourself, Marlon, perhaps in the future?
So I'll definitely direct. Marlon wants to write a novel. Okay. So I think that's both coming out of. I mean, we've had and we have like a good career in screenwriting, but I think there are because a script is effectively a blueprint. It's not like the end result. You write it, and then people have to realize it. And if they don't realize it on screen, it just stays in a drawer somewhere. Or you maybe years later you can go back out, pitch and try it. But effectively it lives as neither alive or dead. But if you go and make something, film it, there it is, it's there, and you can send it out to an audience. Or if you write a novel like what Marlon wants to do, that's the finished. You can get to the finished product and give it to someone to consume. And I think we're attracted to that as screenwriters, because our stuff's only ever really read by producers and actors. And it's been nice to kind of widen that a bit. Yeah. So I hope to direct in the next couple of years. We've got some big projects that we're waiting to see, when they'll get the nod. We do have one green lit project with Channel 4, which is actually about the shooting of Cherry Gross in Brixton in 1985 that sparked the riot, and it's follows her son Lee Lawrence as he tries to get justice against the police for what happened. And then again, we're speaking to Lee because he's a real person, and is a really great campaigner for justice. And it's his story and how it affected the family, and in particular his brother Michael. And kind of like it's about him trying to bring the family together while they're trying to take the police through the courts. And that's like a 3-part one-off drama that we'll shoot next year. And then we've got 2 US projects. One actually is like a boxing drama. That'll be a series. It's still set in London, but it's with American backing, and that's with G Unit and 50 Cent, which is be on Stars as well, and hopefully will be something that they want to make, but we're still waiting to see if they actually want to. We've written some of it, so we're waiting to see if they want to make it. And then another one is with Michael B. Jordan, actually. He's a really cool guy. And that's Rainbow Six, which is was a game, but it's a book originally. Tom Clancy kind of, I don't know if you ever saw like the Jack Ryan stuff like that. It's the guy who did that, and so we're writing a script for him. And so I think we're waiting to see those two big ones come off, and if they do, I think that will allow us to kind of explore other things, because I think it will help like career-wise.
So whilst you're here skiving and Marlon's working, are those the projects that he's actually working on now, or is there something, are you doing even more stuff as well?
We are doing other stuff, but what he's so we've got a deadline to get stuff in for Rainbow Six, because there was a massive writer strike that just ended recently, and we couldn't work on anything that was backed by US production companies or studios, and so there's been a big gap, and so now they're like, we want everything now. And so. So I was like, well, I'll come and talk, and but the way we work though, like we work separately anyway. So like you work on a section, or I'll work on a section, and then I'll read it, discuss it, how we can make it better or make changes, and then I'll rewrite, or he'll rewrite me, depending on who started. So in this instance, he's going to send me some stuff, and then we'll just work out how to make it better, which is, I think one little thing we always remember is that any story, and any writer will probably echo this. I think the story really comes in the rewrite. Okay. Like you do it like a first draft, and usually it's just a mess, and then you have to kind of finely craft it down into what it will be. And so that's, and with two of us, you can kind of get to that a bit quicker.
Brilliant. So I'm going to put to the audience any questions that you yourselves have for Daniel today. Anyone want to ask any questions?
Is there anything specific that you'd love to work on? Any stories or projects or any themes that you sort of have always wanted to work on but haven't got around to? And is there anyone that you'd love to work with particularly?
Ooh, yeah, loads. There was like a story, a real life bit of history about this African man who used to be, like, so set in like 16th century, and he used to be like a slave with the Jesuits, and then they took him to Japan, and he became a samurai. Like he got his freedom and became a samurai, and always loved this story of like this guy coming from Africa going to Japan in like the 16th century, and then rising up to become like this warrior. And both Marlon and I always wanted to tell that story. We did actually write a script for it, and it unfortunately didn't get made. So, but it's something that if we get to do bigger stuff, I'd like to go back to and maybe find like a really like someone. I don't know. Going back to that question of who to work with, there's so many good actors, but in fact, there's a couple of them that were kind of like developed. Like, so Daniel Kaluuya is someone that we are kind of working with, like in the sense that we're writing or have already written a script for his production company for him to maybe star in. We're just kind of waiting to see what happens. He's got a movie coming out called The Kitchen with Kano, and I guess it's up to him whether he wants to do this next. So, touch wood, wherever it may be. That he says yes to this, because if he does, then he's the kind of person that will just get that made. So sorry, it was a really long answer, but it's a good question.
Go ahead.
What's your inspiration? How did you get started? And did you know you wanted to be a scriptwriter, or did you fall into?
I always loved movies, as Molly can always tell you. I'd get her to watch all sorts of inappropriate, like 18 and 15 certificate. And yeah, just was a lover of movies, but didn't really know that I wanted to write stories until I figured out how films were made. And then once I figured out, at first I thought it was just like director and I was trying to do that for a bit, but then I realized for me, writing the story is more satisfying. But ironically, I haven't done that for a while. I'm like, directing could be good as well, a bit more control. But yeah, so it's just growing up watching all sorts of movies, like from Hollywood stuff to British stuff to I used to like a lot of Hong Kong action movies. Yeah, like it had a very wide kind of like taste.
Graham?
It sounds as if Channel 4 was important in helping you get started. There was obviously talk, at least a couple of years ago, about selling Channel 4 off. How important is Channel 4 in the British industry in terms of allowing different voices to be heard?
Yeah, I'd say it's incredibly important, probably like the only one who's really doing it in any kind of meaningful capacity. And so, and I guess to answer the first part of the question, they were really, I wouldn't be here if they hadn't done our show. And so, and even though the people who greenlit that show have since moved on, there's still that kind of Channel 4 ethos, and so the new people adhere to that as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're getting to do this one about Cherry Gross, because they want to keep the relationship. And in terms of, we kind of, I'd say we need them, because if they get bought and sold, they'll just be a purely commercial enterprise, and that will likely mean you're not going to get some of the shows out there that I feel we need, like from all different communities, in particular like LGBTQ communities as well, because they do a lot of that, and not many other people do. But luckily, that's kind of on ice now. Like, it's unlikely that they will get bought and sold. But it's one of those that will keep rearing its head because of politics, so for now, that was deemed very unpopular, but give it a couple of years, someone will float the idea again. So I think, but luckily everyone in the industry is very much like, we'll fight for that. I think it would be, even if it happens, like worst case scenario it does, I think anyone who buys it would still have to keep that as part of the remit. Otherwise, why would you buy Channel 4? But
yeah, and I suppose they would lose their core audience because people are going there for a reason.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
it would just be like any other channel, be like a lesser version of ITV or something like that, which no one really wants.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe they do, but I don't.
Hello.
So this gets a bit more about the creative process you go through. How much consideration do you give to the person or people who might be watching
watching it, and whether they're going to be binging it, for example, or what sort of platforms does that come into the process at all? Was it just first writing the story?
No, it does. It really, that's that can have massive ramifications as well. So, so I guess a typical scenario would be you get called in, or you have to pitch on a job. Like, it'll go out to different writers if they come in, and it'll be a production company, like, pitch us your take. It could be an original idea as well that you pitch them, but either way, they'll say, okay, we like it, we'll pay you to write it. And this is where we're thinking about offering it up to different platforms, like BBC, Netflix, and depending on where they're offering it up to, you may have to structure your script to fit that. So, for example, Channel 4 has ad breaks. A Channel 4 hour is 60. We would have an hour episode, but if it's on Channel 4, it's usually 47 minutes because of the ad breaks. And so you're going to get roughly a 47-page script that will be broken up into maybe 4 or 5 parts. But if it's for Netflix, you can do a whole 60-page you don't necessarily have to break it up because there's no outbreak. Like, so it definitely has an impact. And I kind of feel, ideally you should just write something and not have to worry about that. But there's also an element of like maybe trying to like tackle it a bit earlier because, or at least structuring your story in a way that if you do have to chop it up in some way, it won't kill anything. And also another thing for streamers, I guess, like infect the public consciousness of Black UK, of the Black UK community, and to where they are now, where they're like, you know, they can stand up. Like there's so many of them on Netflix, for example, that are really well made. I think it's been a great journey, and yeah, they're like enjoyable. But I think for someone like I think it's mainly for people who are a bit more connected to like Nigeria or maybe from there more, just because I guess you need that kind of authenticity as well. But it's a bit like Bollywood, like it's not a closed shop necessarily, but like it's mainly gonna be there for people who are born and bred in kind of Nigeria. But there's crossovers happen. I know quite a lot of British Nigerian writers who are trying to get like some kind of like big collab going because there's stars on that side, there's stars on this side, like something. So I reckon something will happen eventually where you will see a kind of merging of talents from both those fields.
Oh, we saw a great movie with Bollywood and Nollywood.
Yeah,
that was. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know if anyone in the audience remembers it, but that was a great year.
And I think there's in fact, a lot of Black British actors have Nigerian or Ghanaian heritage, and in particular, like the Nigerian ones, and there's a lot of Black British writers of Nigerian heritage who I think, want to do a big collab. So.
Any other questions?
That's good.
Oh, sorry. Go.
I was going to ask, so what sort of challenges did you have taking your vision, your dream, your passion from the drawing boards to actually reality? And if you had a young person coming to you to say, Daniel, I've got this dream, how do I make it reality? What sort of advice would you give?
I think I would probably go back to what I was saying before, in that if you could find a way to film what you have on the page, I think it's anyone who's thinking about either giving you money or putting something on a wider platform, it helps if they can see what it is that you're after, even if it's just like a kind of a taste. And luckily nowadays you don't need a lot to actually produce something that looks half decent. And so I would advise them to try and do that. Get some people who can act reasonably and see what you can come up with. And I think the challenges that Marlon and I faced are a bit different to today, but there's still those challenges there. And that's, I think, like I was telling you about, you want to let you show work, and it just has to be like twice as good as maybe something. If you're doing it in a space maybe where there's not a lot of other Black writers, I think you scrutinise a bit more, and so you have to kind of really be on your ones and twos really, and just get it right, and you get a lot of knockbacks, but you've got to kind of have thick skin, like super thick skin, and not take it personally. And I think get to a point where you're like, okay, I've done what I feel the best is, and that's all that matters.
That's quite tricky, isn't it? Having that level of pressure to know that this could be my last chance because it's a less forgiving space.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say, like, even if it is the last chance, with that particular person, there's always others. Because it can be like, okay, I've tried it and it's not worked there, but you can always recalibrate and have a look. And try a different tact or a different project and stuff. So you have to be thick-skinned, but also adaptable, highly adaptable. Not for the faint-hearted.
you made a good point about that kind of relatability to the characters, but you've written those shows where you said you deliberately have all these characters from different. How hard is that as a writer to be able to sort of flick around between writing all those characters and keep them authentic?
From like different communities and different one of the things that we always try and do is make sure we have some kind of personal either experience or memory of someone. Like, so if you're going to write someone from, say, the British Pakistani community, we would, think back to friends in school we maybe had, or like what we've seen in our area. I think there's always, as diverse as they are, it would always be based off something we've either seen, heard, or read. And then on top of that, there's definitely like research. I mean, which is a good excuse to procrastinate. Because you're meant to write something, but researching about this particular type of person, or even like a profession as well, like because if you've got to be authentic in all ways within reason. And so it's kind of plucked from your personal experience, and then just reading up. And then if you're lucky to either work with a producer, or like you get to a stage where you're thinking about casting, it's good to kind of get people from those backgrounds in those roles. And this happened a lot when we were doing both One Save Me and other stuff that we've done, where someone who would come in and be like, I wouldn't say that, or we would say this instead. Like drawing on the actual people, once you can put a face to a character is really important. So it's kind of like a collection of things, really.
How do you use data when it comes to kind of thinking about what scripts? And I know you said about the research bit. Do you just kind of research your ideas, or do you use data behind the scenes to kind of guide you with how you're going to write or what you're going to write about?
It depends. So like the Cherry Gross thing we're doing, this is all based on real life people, many of them who are still alive. So you can go out and actually talk to them one-on-one. Whereas, the Samurai project that I was talking about, that you just got to go and read lots of like old Jesuit history books, which are boring. But then you'll get like a few tidbits. They mentioned his name here, or lots of articles online, lots of like essays by historians and stuff like that. And then or if you like say we're doing the Rainbow Six thing, then you need to kind of look up. Or in fact, in this case, we actually have a technical advisor. So there's a guy we can email or pick up a phone to and be like, would the CIA do this? Would MI6 do that? So it just depends, really. Like it's anything from talking to someone to reading to getting a book. But it's there's a lot of information behind the scenes, and then even if it's like something personal to you, it's just going and talking to whoever you feel is like connected to the story that you're trying to tell. I think that's probably an aspect of writing not many people realize is there's a lot of absorbing of information before you even get on the keys.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Matt.
So obviously winning a BAFTA is a massive deal. What would you say is your next big milestone or achievement that if you hit that you'd be able to say Mum, I made it. It could be working with your dream actor or actress, or hitting a new market, or.
That's a good question. I mean, probably making a movie. I think that feels like, for me, I know Marlon feels the same as well. That feels like the last kind of. Actually, last makes it sound like we're going to die, but that's one of the major hurdles that we haven't cleared yet. We've written so many and they haven't been made. They've gotten very close, and so we're kind of chomping at the bit to at least have one made, because we've done lots of TV, and it's great. And we'd always do TV, but a movie written by us. And then I'll say to my mum,
Yeah. If
if a young person wants to get involved and they think that that's their dream and they want to start, where would you steer them to? What where would you point them to get a start?
I guess it depends on their age, but like there's a really good college that opened up called the London Screen Academy that has got loads of industry people involved and backing, and I think you can get into it between 15 and 16. Like, I guess after you do, yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of sixth form college age. And I'd point them there if they were age appropriate for that, because there's not many places when you're that age that is very industry specific and not just theory. And failing that, I'd probably like point them towards like trying to collaborate with people in like theatre as well, because there's lots of actors and writers in theatre that obviously their craft is honed for that particular platform, but they have transferable skills for the screen, and it's a great place to kind of for everyone to kind of flex that creative muscle.
Support, and mostly we want to thank you, Daniel, for coming here today, because you took out your time to come and speak with us, and we really want to say thank you very much for that.